All right, so I think we're on big number M, is that right?
N.
N, like November?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so big number N, let's better know a president. Teddy Roosevelt. He actually hated being called Teddy, so we'll go ahead and call him Theodore. All right, so Theodore Roosevelt, he becomes our president after William McKinley is assassinated. And Teddy Roosevelt is president after William McKinley is assassinated. Now, Teddy Roosevelt is going to go down as being like one of the most popular presidents of all time. Okay, historians love this guy. He's almost always gets like a solid A rating. He is like a top 5 president. You know, at worst, he's in the top 10. Okay, most people keep him as, you know, one of the best presidents of all time. Okay, let's get some of his background on his personality, because he's going to cast a big shadow over the progressive era. All right, so the first thing we need here is that he is a progressive president. He's the first of our progressive presidents. And he's going to cast a shadow. He's going to make the entire era look like him, basically. So as a boy, he was born into money. He was born rich. It's always nice to be born rich. Yeah, I wouldn't know, but I hear it's nice. So he's born wealthy, but as a little boy, he was sick. He had a lot of like lung problems and stuff when he was a little boy. And that matters for his story, because he goes through a period of time of like 5 or 6 years where he's bedridden and he can't go out, he can't do anything. He's just like looking out the window, watching other people play. And he writes about how this used to bother him so much, right? While he's in bed the whole time, he starts to read, and he reads and reads and reads and reads and reads. He becomes one of our most well-read presidents. He ends up reading hundreds of books a year, right? He reads just everything he can read. He closes out like the local library around him. He has to get books delivered in, right? Like he reads everything, right? And so what ends up happening is he has like a really broad knowledge on tons and tons of topics on all sorts of things. He is interested, he's curious about everything. And he's always saying to himself, when I get out of here, when I get out of my sickness, I'm going to go and just live my life to the fullest, right? Well, he does eventually get healthy. And when he gets healthy, he becomes like fitness king. He goes and he plays all sorts of sports. He goes out hunting and camping and hiking, and he travels all over the place. He goes on like safaris hunting, like elephants and things, stuff like that. He starts a love affair with the outdoors. Okay. Now, he is instilled with a couple of things in here. Okay. His love of the outdoors is going to become environmentalism. He's going to create the National Park Service. It's going to be a central feature of him. The other central feature of him is what he calls the square deal. So I want you to put the square deal as one of its bullet points. Now, the square deal is the belief that every person in the United States should have the same opportunity for success. Every person in the United States should have the same opportunity for success. Roosevelt, very controversially, is going to include Black people in that. He's going to include women in that. He's going to say, everyone, if you're here, you should be able to be successful. He also, all of those books, all that philosophy, all that stuff he read, it gave him a deep sense of ethics. Okay? And he believes that we all must tend to the people below us, right? We have to help the weak. We have to help the poor. No matter who you are, there's always someone worse than you, right? And so you need to find the people who are worse off than you and help them. And in the case of Teddy, he's a rich man. he has to help a lot of people, right? This idea is that the rich have a responsibility to help. They have a responsibility to help the poor, help the weak, help the people below them. This is going to inform the way he deals with the progressive era. Because when he sees labor disputes, he's going to see that labor dispute and he's going to side with the workers. When he sees muckrakers revealing things, he's going to side with the muckrakers. When he sees monopolies that are being, doing bad stuff, he's going to attack the monopolies. Okay, this is going to make him immensely popular with Americans. They're going to love the guy because he is the champion of the little guy. Okay, all right. He's also, our first celebrity. Let's call him that. Our first celebrity president. Now, the concept of celebrity doesn't really exist yet. Hollywood is basically like 3 shacks in the desert of Los Angeles, right? Hollywood doesn't really exist at this point. But he becomes like a celebrity. The women want to be with him. The guys want to be like him, right? Like he gets his pictures taken at interviews, and he travels all over the place. He is just this like larger than life kind of personality that people just want to be around. He's funny, he's energetic, right? People would challenge him. They'd be like, hey, they say you work out a lot. And he's like, all right, let's do this. And he'd have all the reporters doing push-ups, and he's like calling it out, like doing his interview during push-ups and stuff like that. Like, he was doing that kind of stuff, and everyone's like just laughing and having a great time. Okay. He was the kind of guy that everyone wanted to be around. Very incredibly popular. Okay. All right. So let's move to element O, right? Are we on O? Big number O. This is going to be one of Teddy's biggest things that he's going to do. Trust busting. O stands for trust busting. So one of the central features of the progressive era is the destruction of monopolies, right? It's about workers' rights. Okay, so trust busting is breaking up monopolies. That's what the definition is. It's the act of breaking up monopolies. It's the act of breaking up monopolies. Okay, so remind me why monopolies are bad? Emma, why are monopolies bad for the customers?
It lowers the quality and variety of goods.
Okay, good. And what does it do to the prices?
It drives them way up.
Way up. Okay, so Emma is absolutely correct. That is 100% correct about monopolies. But we didn't really talk about this. What does a monopoly do to the workers? Fernando, what do you think the monopoly is going to do to the workers?
I don't know. Is it going to make them work harder?
Okay.
And paid less?
Yep, that's exactly correct. It's going to make the workers work longer hours, more, and they're going to get paid less. This is important to put in this part of the notes. Okay, monopolies hurt consumers for the reasons that Emma said. That's what we talked about earlier. But monopolies hurt workers by making them work longer and pay less. And also the working conditions are worse because there's no reason why the company has to fix it, right? Why would I ever give my workers days off when I could just make them work every day? What are they going to do? Quit? You're going to quit and let your children starve? No, suck it up. Do my work. Okay? So Roosevelt recognizes that monopolies are dangerous. They're dangerous for consumers and they're dangerous for the workers. And so he uses a law called the Sherman Antitrust Act. This is a law that was passed by Congress before Roosevelt is president, but it's passed by Congress. And this basically gives Congress the ability to break up big companies. And he, in the court case, Northern Securities Company versus the United States, Teddy Roosevelt goes after J.P. Morgan right here. J.P. Morgan is the richest banker in the country. This dude owns like half of the banks in the entire country. He's like the third richest man on the planet Earth, right? This picture here shows him trying to beat the photographer with a cane, right? I like this picture because this is like him auditioning for the part of evil businessman, right? In a movie, and he's auditioning for the part. It lets you know that he is so rich, he's so powerful that he thinks it's okay to just beat people up with his cane because he's just going to throw money at it and he'll be fine, right? Morgan hated getting his picture taken, and so he would oftentimes beat down people who took his picture. It was pretty common. Roosevelt goes after Morgan and wins. They break up Morgan's bank. It breaks up into like 6 smaller banks. Okay. When they trust bust, they take the big company, they break it up into pieces, and they sell the pieces off to different people. And then those pieces exist as competitive banks. So USA Bank, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, all of them come out of this company. Okay, they're going to eventually break up Rockefeller's oil, and that's going to become like Chevron and Texaco and Exxon Mobil and all those companies, right? We used the last time the United States used the Sherman Antitrust Act, we used it against Microsoft in the 1990s because Microsoft controlled 95% of all the computers in the world. And it was a monopoly. And so Congress went after Microsoft. They opted not to break up Microsoft, but what they did is they took the code for Windows, the operating system that all computers run on, and they released it to the public. And they said, any company can do this. You can all make Windows now, right? This allowed for the rise of Apple, right? That's why Apple computers look like Windows, right? That's why when you are looking at it, I can just click on things on my Windows and it turns on the application, right? That's Windows right there. It's Apple's version of Windows, right? It allowed for the rise of Apple and things like Google and stuff like that are allowed for the rise of all those other companies, okay? It also allowed for the rise of like video game companies that could use the Windows coding to make video games better. So, okay. Do we have a question about trust busting? You should. So
what would happen if a company won?
So if the company won, so companies do win sometimes. So the company has to demonstrate that they don't control the market, right? So usually the government is not going to sue them unless it's obvious that they control the market, okay? There's a lot of people who are saying Amazon needs to be sued because Amazon controls the entire online shopping market, right? When was the last time you guys bought from any place not Amazon? Like almost never, right? Almost 100% of internet commerce comes out of Amazon, almost, right? So Amazon's probably going to get attacked. The government will probably go after it. Rightfully so. It'll be good because then we'll have lots of Amazons. They'll break it up and they'll make multiple Amazons that will all, deliver stuff for us.
But then that means multiple Prime memberships, and it's like, no.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe they'll take Amazon Prime and make it its own company or something, or I don't know. I don't know what they'll do. But Amazon's definitely a monopoly. Definitely. Yeah. I don't want to pay for multiple Prime memberships, right? I already have to pay for Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and Disney Plus. I mean, come on now. Come on, son. All right. Okay, so let's go to, I'm going to skip foreign policy. I don't want to do that. All right, I'm going to skip Carrie Nation for now, but we might come back to her. She's kind of a nut. Okay, let's do the 1902 coal strike. All right, so big number P. Big number P. All right, so this one, this is in 1902, we get a coal strike, coal workers. Okay, now this is the first big major strike, the first big major strike in the United States, because these are coal workers. They're all protesting how things are being handled. They have to work long hours. They don't get paid much. but this is the first time that Teddy Roosevelt is dealing with a strike. Before Roosevelt, what did the government do to strikers?
Shoot them.
Sometimes, yeah. Usually not, thankfully, right? But is the government ever on the side of the strikers?
No.
Basically never, right? Prior to this, we've been having strikes for the last 30 years, and the government was always on the side of the business, okay? This is the first time that the government is on the side of the workers. Teddy Roosevelt chimes in and gives the workers army protection. And he forces the mining companies to give in to them. Okay, so Teddy Roosevelt is not neutral. He's on the side of the workers in this case. Okay, this is a huge, huge deal. Okay, it's a huge, huge deal because this shows that the entire labor movement has a future. It was looking really, really bad for the labor movement for a while, right? There had been like 5 presidents in a row, all of them who were against labor, and all of them were constantly using the army to shut down the labor, using the police to shut down the labor, sometimes using violence to shut down the labor. And this is the first time that the government steps inside on the behalf of labor. And when they do that, Roosevelt is sending a message to the unions of the country saying, you have a friend. You have a friend in me, right? And he's saying, you have a friend, I will be on your side. And so what we're gonna have here is from this point forward, for the next like 15 years, the United States is going to have strikes in almost every single industry across the entire country for 15 years. Every single day of the next 15 years is going to have strikes. Every single day. Sam, did you have a question?
Yeah. So if a strike is basically like sponsored or backed by the government, isn't it technically just like the government's just suing the company?
So it's not, because the workers are the ones choosing to go on strike, right? And the labor union will go to the management and the labor union will say, our people deserve a whatever, $1 raise, right? And if management negotiates with them, then the government never gets involved at all, right? A lot of companies will do this. I worked for Boeing. A big giant airplane company, right? And I worked for Boeing after I got out of the Air Force. And it was when I was doing intelligence work for the DIA. And Boeing has one of the strongest unions in the country, right? A really, really strong union. And that union negotiates with the management of Boeing, and they negotiate for all sorts of stuff: education benefits, retirement benefits, health benefits. Like, I didn't have to pay for my health care while I worked there because the management paid for all of my health care, like all sorts of stuff like that, right? Boeing doesn't want to strike. And so Boeing sits down and negotiates with them. And as long as Boeing does that, there's never any problem. This isn't the government forcing the issue. This is the government supporting the little guy. Does that make sense, Sam? Right? This is different than here. This is the government pursuing action. This is the government pursuing JP Morgan, suing him, taking him to court. This is the government letting it happen and then supporting it. Cool? All right, let's move to, I want to do this one. Let's move to P, around P. Big number P.
We just did P with the coal strike.
Okay,
I think we're on Q.
Done, Q. Q for conservation, conservation. Wow.
Conservation.
Conservation.
Oui.
I don't know what accent we're doing, but it's pretty dumb. All right, so this gentleman right here with this magnificent beard, his name is John Muir. John Muir up here. And this is him with his close personal friend, Teddy. He hated being called Teddy. We'll call him Theodore. So John Muir and Teddy are both here visiting Yosemite National Park. Have any of you guys been to Yosemite before? Oh, in Virginia or in California? It's like in the middle of California. No? It's super beautiful. You should probably go. All right. So John Muir is a naturalist, is what we call him, a naturalist. This means that he is a person who spends his time in nature and studies it. He studies nature. So he travels all over the country and he studies nature. Now, at this point in time, the United States has already established our first national park. What is our first national park?
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone, right? We talked about Yellowstone in the last unit. Muir looks at the beauty of Yellowstone and he says, Yellowstone's not the only thing. There's other places like this. He goes to Yosemite and he says, oh my, this is beautiful, right? He starts to document these things. He's taking these pictures. This is Yosemite here. He's going around and he's taking these pictures and he's hiking off, you know, on horseback and on foot, on canoe, and he's getting into these like backwoods areas of the country where he's taking these beautiful pictures and he is writing about them in his books. And he makes an argument to the government that the United States government should preserve these things. The United States government should preserve these as the great sites that they are. That Yellowstone's not the only thing valuable. Okay? Roosevelt, the lover of the outdoors, Roosevelt agrees. They start the National Park Service. What they're going to do is create a network of parks across the entire country, and all of them were going to be collectively owned by the American people. They're going to be preserved. No mining, no logging, no building cities in them. They're preserved for the people. Okay, now this is going to go down in history, and put it in quotes here, America's best idea. Okay, when people around the world start looking at this, at the time, it looks like it's just America kind of being, you know, environmental, right? But people eventually start looking at this and they start saying, holy crap, the United States is preserving this massive, massive wilderness, right? The Grand Canyon, Yosemite, Yellowstone, Zions, Arches, the Olympic, Cascades, right? Like Everglades, Big Bend, Carlsbad Caverns, right? They start preserving all of these spots all over the country. And the rest of the world looks at this and they are in awe. At the beginning in 1906, nobody goes here, right? There's no roads. Cars haven't been invented yet. There's no planes. Like people can't get there, right? But now they do. Now the great American vacation is one of two things. It's Disney World or it's national parks, right? Those are the two great American vacations. If you think about like the world of tourism in the United States, like all Americans do one or the other, basically.
I thought you were saying in 1906 Disney World was open, and I'm like, what?
No, yeah. In 1906, Walt Disney is probably a teenager, probably at this point. He's going to invent Mickey Mouse in the 1920s, right? So Steamboat Willie, the first Mickey Mouse cartoon, comes out in like 1927, I think, 28, 27, something like that. Yeah. So Walt Disney, I think, is a teenager right now at this point. Anyway, did I tell you guys about taking my friends to the national parks for the first time? I don't remember what I said. So I have a couple of really, really good friends, Travis and Anna, a married couple, and they are scientists. They both have chemistry degrees. She has a doctorate in chemistry, and they live in Washington, D.C. They're very, very good friends of mine. I used to live in D.C., and that's, you know, they live there. And they've grown up their entire life in big cities on the East Coast, okay? They came out to visit us in Utah a couple years ago, and we drove them down. We did Arches and Canyonlands. We spent like a week driving around, you know, the Red Rock and stuff and showing it off to them, and they were in awe. The entire time they were like, holy crap. And I take them, and every time we take them, it's even more. I take them to Delicate Arch, and they're like, oh my God. I take them to the Needles and Canyonlands, and I'm like, oh my God. I take them to I take them to Escalante, and they're like, oh my God, right? Like it keeps getting more and more and more and more, right? The last night we were in Capitol Reef National Park, right smack dab in the center of Utah. And I told them, I said, we have one more thing that we're going to do. I'm going to take you out in the middle of the night, right? And they're like, what are we doing? And I said, you need to see the night sky. And they're like, we don't want to do that. It's cold and it's dark and we're tired. And I go, you need to see this. Trust me, right? Now, at this point, I had already shown them all this really cool stuff. And so they trusted me, right? So we're driving out at midnight. We drive into Capitol Reef. And we get there and we get on the dirt road, and I drive like 12 miles down the dirt road. We're in the middle of butt nowhere Capitol Reef, right? And we drive out there, and then we park, and then we get out on foot, and we walk about a quarter mile down the trail over this like ridge into this other area, right? No flashlights, complete darkness. The whole time, Travis and Anna are like, what the hell? Like Dave is going to murder us in the desert, right? And they're like he's gone crazy. He's going to kill us. And I was like, and I just told him, I said, calm down and just wait, right? And so we just sat down for about 40 minutes and our eyes adjusted, right? No dark, no light, no moon. There was no moon in the sky. And their eyes adjusted to the point that they started seeing more and more stars, right? They were used to a night sky of about 100 stars because that's all you can see in Washington, D.C. We know, if you've been out to the desert and done this in the middle of the night, there are billions of stars, right? And we're sitting there, and Travis and Anna, scientists, they're atheists. They've never stepped foot in a church in their life. They gazed upon the face of God, right? It's a religious experience. They didn't know they were having a religious experience, but they were. Right? For the first time ever, they were connected to the universe. They were connected to everything around them, right? And you can only do that in the wilderness, right? And Travis and Anna were like sitting there, and they couldn't even talk because they didn't know what the night sky looked like. I had revealed to them a truth of the world that they couldn't see. This is one of the most brilliant things about Teddy Roosevelt, is that Teddy Roosevelt preserved that for us. In a country of labor disputes and factories and trains and pollution and war and racism, right? And sexism and protests, we have these little corners of magic that we've been able to hold on to. And that's the legacy of Teddy Roosevelt. One of the legacies. Do you guys have any questions about this kind of stuff? I'm going to